So the Chargers just clinched their spot into the playoffs after beating the Colts 3-20 on Monday Night Football. And like we do every single week, we're going to be doing my instant reactions to this game. So if you enjoy this content, please like and subscribe. But, let's go ahead and get into this. This game was just so good to watch. Now, there was definitely a lot of issues for the Chargers team still. Defense played incredible, and I know the Colts offense isn't great, especially with the loss of Jonathan Taylor entering IR, a huge loss for the Colts, but the defense played great. The offense, on the other hand, not so much. So like we do every single week, of course, my instant reactions, we're going to break down the game a little bit, not too much. I think we do a little bit too much. I mean, you guys just watched the game. Why do you need me to break down the whole thing? And then we're talking about stats. And lastly, we're going to talk about, the playoff scenarios that the Chargers have. Now, entering this week, the Chargers honestly needed a lot of help to clinch their spot in the playoffs. But somehow, some way, the Chargers are gifted their Christmas gift early with a lot of teams losing that the Chargers need to on Saturday. On Sunday, we also saw the Dolphins loss, which did help. Of course, the day before, you saw the Patriots and the Jets and the Raiders lose. Those are all the scenarios Chargers needed. And it all came down to Monday Night Football. Chargers, you win, and you're in. And they were able to do it, winning 20-3. And it feels so good, but there's still plenty of issues that the Chargers do need to fix before that time. So let's do a quick recap of this game. Not waste too much time on it. Just a quick recap. And then let's talk about some of the stats, because this game was really good and also really bad at the same time. So first quarter, the Chargers defense immediately showed up. They forced 2 interceptions. Nick Foles, of course, who would step in for Matt Ryan the first game this year, and I think the second game in like 2 years. Chargers come in. Derwin James as well as Michael Davis get interceptions. The Chargers offense did nothing with it. The entire first quarter, the Chargers only had 1 first down. Just abysmal play from the offense. And, I'm pointing my finger at Joe Lombardi 100% on this. The play calling was just horrible. And we'll touch on that a little bit here. But the defense played so good, and the Chargers offense just wasn't able to maintain it. Now, quick note here before I get too far ahead of myself. I do want to say to Colts fans that are watching, as well as, the Colts team in general, this was a really good game. The Colts did play very hard, and I really do enjoy... I enjoyed how the Colts were moving the ball offensively and some of the plays they were making. Now, of course, they only scored 3 points, but it was pretty good. Of course, props to Colts fans and all that. Every single game, it's all about, fans versus fans, of course. But, we all love the game of football. We need to remember that. So don't go destroying other Colts fans. Back to the game itself. The second quarter, Chargers, picked it up a little bit here. They only scored 10 points, of course. But they kind of found a way to get it going a little bit. They would score on either their first or second drive. I can't quite remember. Herbert would go for a QB sneak on like 3rd and short. You'd end up handing the ball off to Austin Eckler, who would get his touchdown run. And this would be the 3rd red zone attempt in a row, including Titans game last week, where the Chargers wouldn't pass the ball a single time. Now, of course, they would score all 3 times, so that's great. But as we kind of saw later on in the game, because of that repetition, you can kind of game plan pretty easily for it and force the Chargers into a tough situation, and that's kind of what would happen here. Now, this Derwin hit and ejection would occur in the second quarter. Man, there's a lot of thoughts about this hit. I'm fine with him getting ejected. It's based on the rules, it's the right thing. You put the crown of your helmet down, you get ejected. Yes, he hit the shoulder first, not helmet to helmet, technically speaking. I think the Colts player did have a concussion, so hopefully it's not a long-term, issue. We've seen Tua apparently had another concussion issue now. So hopefully this isn't something like that for this Colts player. Derwin James, incredible hit. And just the way that I look at it, I mean, a couple years ago when I was in high school and you're watching, defensive highlights, big hits and stuff to get hype for your game, that Derwin hit is the exact type of hit and play you would see in those type of videos. But now you get ejected for it, and I'm sure he's going to be paying a big amount out of his paycheck. Game's changed a lot. Not a huge fan of it. I do enjoy those big hits, but I also understand you need to save your players, protect the players, of course. That is very important for the league. Keenan Allen's huge play occurred in the second quarter. 3rd and 1, you would end up handing it off to Joshua Kelly. Kelly would kind of go this way, and by the way, that play looked like it was getting blown up if that would have been the real play. Joshua Kelly pitches it back to Justin Herbert, and Justin Herbert finds Keenan Allen on kind of like a slant route, maybe a seam route, beats the defender just barely. Perfect throw by Justin Herbert, and Keenan tries to tightrope his way down the sideline and just almost does it. I mean, he was so close, within inches of that being a touchdown versus that being out of bounds. I really like that play. I've been just saying fire Joe Lombardi for so long, and I 100% still believe it, but that's the type of plays that if you try to bring into your offense, you could kind of fix some things. I really enjoyed that play. Great play by Keenan, great play by Herbert, and I really wish Keenan would have found a way to get in. By the way, I know Keenan Allen was injured, but man, he deserved to be in the Pro Bowl. Another huge game for Keenan Allen with his return. Now, the Chargers would end up, I think they had to take a 3 on that possession. They would end up having to take their first passing attempt in the red zone in their 4th attempt. They would end up finally passing the ball. After 14 straight running plays in the red zone, the Chargers would finally pass the ball. And what they would end up doing is on 2nd and down, everyone would pretty much be in the red zone. Herbert would try to force it into Keenan. It wouldn't quite work. That's fine and dandy. I kind of wish there would have been a little bit more middle game because it seemed like everyone was in the end zone on 2nd and goal. And then on 3rd and goal at the 11-yard line, the play that you call up is a short play, pretty much at the line of scrimmage, and you try to force Austin Eckler to go through 5 defenders to make your way to the end zone. Just terrible play calling by Joe Lombardi. Absolutely hate that play calling. And you make an incredible play on 3rd and 1 earlier, which almost gets you a touchdown, and then you call that just a few plays later. I mean, that's the prime example of why Joe Lombardi needs to be off this team. I don't think they do it this year, but man, does he need to go. Chargers forced to take that field goal after that 3rd and 11. Joe, of course, couldn't drop a scoring play. And that was the first time the Colts had stopped a red zone attempt from being a touchdown in like their 11th attempt. The previous 10 red zone appearances for the defense, they didn't stop anybody from scoring a touchdown. 10 in a row. And this time they finally stopped the Chargers. Of course, they still get a field goal, but not so good. You would like to see the Chargers punched in there. 3rd quarter, Asante Samuel Jr. had that great interception. Great read by him. Bad read by quarterback Foles. Man, I keep mixing up now that Matt Ryan's out. Chargers couldn't find a way to score there. They go for it on 4th and short. They get it, and then at 4th and short at the goal line, they decide not to go for it. They go up by 2. I'm okay with that. I enjoy going up by 2. And, it ended up not mattering too much. 4th quarter, Carter would muff the punt. Thankfully, based on the rules, which I kind of figured at first, because there was a person out of bounds that was touching the football, Chargers would get the ball back. But as I'm sure Colts fans will say, ball don't lie, and Herbert would end up getting a strip sack just a few plays later. Colts would pick it up, and I think the Colts would score they scored their 3 points in the 3rd quarter. Is that right? Was that strip sack in the 3rd quarter then? It had to have been. Strip sack, of course, then the Colts kicked that field goal, or maybe they went for it. I'm not quite sure on that, actually. Eckler in the 4th quarter would end up scoring his 2nd touchdown of the game. After pretty much 6 straight run plays, he would find his way into the end zone, and on the following possession, the Chargers would run more run plays. Chargers ran 8 straight run plays before they would end up passing on 3rd and 5, and they threw it at the line of scrimmage and ended up getting blown up. The rest of the game really didn't matter. Chargers come home with the win, of course, 20-3. But now let's talk about some of the stats. I mean, this was a great game to watch. But, I mean, if you just watch this game, I'm not going to sit here and break this whole game down for 20 minutes. Let's talk about stats. And this was a great game, especially on the defense, I think. So that's where I want to start. This defense for the Chargers, of course, played absolutely insane. 3 interceptions, one from Michael Davis. The first one was Michael Davis. Then you had Derwin James, both in the 1st quarter. And then in the 3rd quarter, you have Asante Samuel Jr. Now, fun fact, the Chargers, of 3 interceptions, would only score 3 points. Of course, that one coming from Asante Samuel Jr. That really shows how bad your offense was. I mean, you get 3 free possessions because of your defense, and you score 1 point per of those possessions. That is just horrible. Now, if you look at the stats, the offense didn't look as bad as it really did. And I think it all goes on Joe Lombardi. Truthfully, the Chargers would have 314 yards, total offensive yards, 213 being passing yards, and 101 being rushing yards, with 4.7 being their average. But that's just not good. I mean, you have Herbert, who is a top 5 quarter statistically, and honestly, I think he's a top 5 quarterback in this entire league. And he only gets you 235 yards, an interception, a fumble as well, and 0 touchdowns. what is Joe Lombardi doing? Joe Lombardi is literally killing Justin Herbert, and this is not the time to be doing it. You just clinched a spot in the playoffs. Now I'm hoping you clinch a spot now. You have 2 more weeks, of course, the Rams and the Broncos. Maybe you spice it up on offense. I don't think they change who's calling plays. Even if they don't fire Joe Lombardi and they just secretly do it behind, I don't think they change it. But hopefully Joe Lombardi takes a little bit more risk and lets Herbert uncork it a little bit and get rolling again, because Herbert's going to be the key to success for the Chargers' playoff hopes long term. Even with a great defense, I think Herbert's going to be more important than that defense. 235 yards. 24 for 31. He had a really, really good completion percentage. Just some tough love with, him and Joe Lombardi not really working very well together. Now, defensively speaking, of course, the 3 interceptions, and they had 7 sacks, I do believe. Where's that stat? Sacks allowed. 7 sacks for the Chargers. Absolutely insane. Now, I do think 2 or 3 of them came in that last possession there, but the Chargers defense was playing so well. All sorts of players. Khalil Mack finally got his. It seems like it's been so long since there's been a Mack attack. Kyle Van Noy gets his third game in a row with a sack. I think he might have had 1.5, maybe even 2. Morgan Fox gets 2. He's been a huge step up. Honestly, Chargers picked him up to kind of be a smaller piece. He got 2 sacks. He had tied for the most tackles in this game. Kenneth Murray, of course, had a sack. Almost had an interception on the first or second play. He wasn't looking at the ball. He was preparing for the tackle and just happened to hit him in the hands. I saw some people saying Kenneth Murray needs to be off this team after this year. I think you guys are insane. Now, I will have a conversation with you guys on that. I think Kenneth Murray has been great, especially this back half of the year. He made a huge play on the fourth down play at the very end of the game. He made a huge play that prevented that being a catch and being another first down. I think Kenneth Murray's been great, honestly. He had a sack in this game. Drew Tranquill also had a sack in this game. Another great linebacker so far this year. Kyle Van Noy had 1 sack. Khalil Mack had his sack. Chris Rumph had 1 sack. Pretty much had 2 sacks, if we're being honest. It's back-to-back plays. The first play, Chris Rumph is holding on to Nick Foles as he's kind of getting blocked, but he doesn't want to jump on him because there might be a flag, and he's just trying to hold him back until they blow the whistle. They don't blow the whistle, and it keeps going. I think Morgan Fox cleaned that one up and got the sack there. But the very next play, Chris Rumph just perfect pass rush and got his sack right after that. Great play by him. That's it for sacks. But, man, this defense was so good. And, you look at the Colts' offensive stats, 173 total yards. Now, of course, without Jonathan Taylor and a new quarterback in the system, it's going to be hard to get a bunch of yards. But, gosh, this Chargers defense looked great. I know the Colts' offense isn't that great, but you can't take away how good this Chargers defense did play. No matter who they're going against, when you play at that high level, you do have to give props to the defense, and they well deserve it. 104 passing yards total for the Colts. Although it says Nick Foles had 143, I wonder if that is because negative yards that occurred. I'm not sure exactly how that works. Rushing yards 69 total, nice. For the Colts, of course, without Jonathan Taylor, that number is going to drop quite a bit. But Chargers did a really good job. And their run defense has been abysmal for quite a few years now. And I know you don't have Jonathan Taylor, but Zach Moss and Jordan Wilkins. By the way, where did their other running back go? I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but I think he was supposed to be the starter this week. And he didn't even run. He didn't even have a single rushing yard. Not sure what happened there, but 69 total yards for a Chargers defense that has been bad and has already let up big yards to backups. That's really, really good. And they average 3.5 yards allowed per play. That's some good defense. A total of 10 first downs from the Colts. And I will say the Colts offense, especially in that first half, was moving pretty good. They were having some pretty good plays. I think Foles' first play was first completion was 17 yards, and then right away had a 13, and a couple plays later had a 15. I think a lot of his yards came through that first possession or two, but I kind of liked what they were doing offensively for a good portion of the game. I think if you call the plays that the Colts were calling, and for the Chargers offense, the Chargers would have put up 35. Honestly, I truly believe that. They were calling some pretty good plays. Just couldn't get it to work out. Colts were 0 for 10 on third down, and there were some good third down opportunities in there. I mean, third and short opportunities, 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, and the Chargers defense stepped up big time. Chargers were 8 of 18 on third downs, right about half. Colts were 1 of 4 on fourth down, including one where, I mean, they did an incredible job on preventing Nick Foles from that QB sneak. I think it was like 4th and 1, darn near 4th and inches, and they just barely stopped him from completing that. That was a huge play. Of course, 4th down attempt at the very end of the game that Kenneth Murray broke up. I think someone else was also included in that. Defense played great. Chargers were 1 of 1 on 4th down, of course, with that one being on that drive that they would take that field goal on. 7 sacks for the Colts, 4 allowed for the Chargers. Speaking of the sacks allowed for the Chargers O-line, for some reason, even after kind of getting healthier, has seemed to get a little bit worse. I don't really know. I haven't seen who allowed the pressures and stuff. That normally comes out tomorrow. Like who allowed the pressures and who allowed the sacks and all that stuff. But, man, it kind of feels like this just O-line is starting to get worse. And I don't know if it's the wear and tear in the game, what it is. Of course, Corey Linsley's kind of been beat up for a good portion of the year. Trey Pipkins has been in and out of the lineup for a good portion. You have a rookie in Zion Johnson and a rookie in Jameer Sawyer who's playing out of position. And Matt Filer has not been reaching his normal expectations. But when you look at this O-line on paper, and for the most part, good portions of the game, that's a really good O-line. They just fumble random plays that allow sacks. And Herbert is constantly under pressure. And I think that does come in part due to Joe Lombardi's play calling, where it keeps Herbert in the pocket so much. And Herbert plays best when he's able to move around and escape the pocket and then make, off-plan plays. So hopefully Joe Lombardi kind of figures that out. Colts would punt it 3 times. Chargers would punt it 4 times. Colts would have punted it more times if it wasn't for the fact that the Chargers intercepted the ball 3 times. Penalties, 2 of 11 for the Colts. Colts did a really good job on penalizing. I think both of their penalties were in the same drive for their offense. One was a false start. The other one was a holding call that got brought back to the 8-yard line. So Colts did a really good job. Chargers, of course, 6 of 60, and pretty much all those flags were big-time flags. Derwin James hit, I think, was 15 and gave him the first down. There was a huge play that I think was a holding call or something on Trey Pipkins. That was, I think it was on Trey Pipkins, and it was a 30-yard swing. I don't remember if it was Keenan Allen or Palmer or who caught the pass, but it was all the way in Colts territory, and it got brought all the way back because a Trey Pipkins holding call. There was a false start or something on that for Corey Linsley moving his head. I hate that call. That's a bull crap call. I don't like swearing that much. Just the Chargers, every single time they were having penalties, it was big-time penalties. They need to try to figure that out. And it always happens in the third quarter. The worst ones are always in the third quarter, it seems like. Fumbles lost, of course, the sack fumble was the only one this game. And that was, of course, on Herbert. I think that was at the Chargers' 20-yard line or something. Interceptions thrown. Herbert threw his one. That was off deflection. Not really on him. It wasn't a great pass, but I wouldn't say the interception itself was on Herbert. Nick Foles obviously threw 3. Time of possession, Chargers honestly didn't outweigh him too much. 33 minutes to 26 minutes. Yes, that's a decent margin, about 7 minutes, but it just didn't feel like Chargers had possession that long. Austin Eckler, let's talk about run game, talk about receiving game. We already talked about the defense. We'll talk about the Colts a little bit, and then we're going to kind of wrap up with some playoff talks here. I know those videos are always long on instant reactions. I will say tomorrow, I don't know which day. Maybe tomorrow, maybe Tuesday will be talking about Chargers playoffs and who you might want to face and reasons why you might want to face them, stuff like that. And then if you're a Bulls fan, I'm going to have a video on DeMar DeRozan in the next few days here. And I also do Vegas Golden Knights content. So if you want more than just Chargers content, go check that out. I've been diving heavily into Chargers content, especially with the playoffs right here. But I'm going to try to move back in some of that. For the Chargers, of course, already covered Justin Herbert's stats. Austin Eckler, 18 carries, 67 yards, 3.7 is his average. That's the exact number that the Chargers running game averages. Funnily enough, Joshua Kelly, 9 carries, 33 yards, 3.7 average. I don't know how they do that, but they do that. Of course, Austin Eckler had his 2 touchdowns as well with those. Not a great game. 101 yards on the ground. Not a great game for them in the rushing game, but they still find a way to, get those 2 touchdowns. Austin Eckler is a beast. They really got to figure out what's going wrong on the rushing game. What is it? Is it like it's easy to read when it's going to happen, or is it the O-line? What's going on? Like, I think Austin Eckler and Joshua Kelly have been great running backs for most of the year. I think this O-line's pretty freaking solid. Zion Johnson and Corey Linsley, pretty darn good run blocking. The rest of the O-line, I'm not so sure on. Honestly, for run blocking, I think Jameer Sawyer is. I don't know too much about Trey Pipkin's run blocking. He's looked really good pass blocking. And Matt Filer's been really hit or miss this year, so it's hard to judge him. I don't know what's going on with this run game. I don't know who to point fingers at. Maybe it's, before the snap occurs, there's something telling the defense it's going to be run play. If it's the stance of some player, what it is, hopefully they can figure it out entering the playoffs. Receivers, Keenan Allen, 11 receptions, 104 yards, 9.5, nearly a touchdown. I think Keenan had 7 receptions for 77 yards at halftime. Mike Williams had almost 0 receptions at halftime. He ended up coming up big late in the game. He had 4 receptions, 76 yards, but after that, it completely falls off. I mean, Joshua Palmer, 2 for 16. I don't know why he's not getting a bunch of targets. Austin Eckler, 4 for 12. Trey McKitty, 1 for 10. Joshua Kelly, 1 for 9. Donald Parham, 1 for 8. And I got a question real quick. The tight ends for the Chargers, and I need your answers. The tight ends for the Chargers was a huge part of their offense for many years. I mean, from Gates to Hunter Henry, and even this year with Gerald Everett. I'm pretty sure Gerald Everett was playing today. I'm almost 100% sure he was playing today. What's going on? Why are the tight ends completely erased from passing? And what happened to Gerald Everett? Why did Joe Lombardi erase Gerald Everett from the playbook? What's going on? Is he still dealing with a lingering issue, and maybe that's the issue? I don't know. But there's something going on. I mean, Donald Parham, 1 reception. Trey McKitty, 1 reception. Of course, Gerald Everett, 0 receptions. Stone Smart, who, by the way, I'm a huge fan of, if you didn't know. I think Stone Smart could low-key kind of be a really good player. You can quote this. In 10 years, if he never does anything, quote it. I don't care. I think Stone Smart could be something. He had 0 receptions. You have 2 total receptions through all your tight ends. You barely look at them. I mean, if Gerald Everett's still a little bit beat up, I understand that, but he looks good. Maybe I missed something, but why is Everett not getting any targets? I mean, he was the best player on this team outside of Austin Eckler and Justin Herbert offensively. The entire time Keenan Allen and Mike Williams were out. And even when Keenan Allen first returned, Gerald Everett was still an important piece. I don't know what's going on with Gerald Everett. Colts stats, do that, and then we're going to talk about playoffs real quick. Nick Foles, of course, 17 for 29, 143 yards, 3 interceptions. We already covered Zach Moss and them. Jelani Woods, tight end, he had 3 for 43. I think one of those was a big play early on. They had Mike Davis and Derwin James on the most part. I think that was the best because Woods has speed and size, and I think Michael Davis and, of course, Derwin James match up best. Derwin James obviously got pulled. Michael Pittman, 4 for 39, not great. And then Alec Pierce, 3 for 26. Paris Campbell, 2 for 19. Deion Jackson was supposed to be the starting running back. He had no rushes, 3 for 9 passing. Don't know why he didn't get much touches. Zach Moss, 1 for 5. Mo Alley Cox, 1 for 2, and Jordan Wilkins, 0 for 0. I don't know why he's even listed. Defensively, not a whole lot going. You've had the 4 sacks, I think. They had a really good rush game, especially interior. We kind of knew that entering the game. DeForest Buckner, of course. I will say a name I didn't hear much, which is normally a good thing for a cornerback if you don't hear their name much because it means you're not targeting them because they must be doing really good lockdown defensively. I think he was on Michael Davis most of the game. Stephon Gilmore, I'm pretty sure Stephon Gilmore. He had 3 tackles, 1 assist. I didn't hear his name at all. I barely even saw him. He must be still really good if I'm not hearing about him. That's just kind of how cornerbacks work. If you don't hear them, they're probably doing a good job. But, Stephon Gilmore, I thought he was going to be just more important this game. He just didn't happen to be. for the most part. Rodney Thompson, of course, had the interception. Colts didn't have a great game. They didn't. Three points scored. We kind of knew that entering the game they were going to score a lot. Chargers scored 20. They should be scoring more than that, especially against a Colts team that it's now 4-10-1. But let's take a step back. Let's talk playoffs real quick. Like I said, I'll probably have a bigger video on that, but let's talk playoffs really quick and then wrap this up, hopefully before it becomes a 30-minute video. Chargers, 9-6, just clinched their playoff spot. That's insane to think about. I mean, 3 weeks ago, there's no way you could have told me that they were clinching playoffs before the last week of the season. I could have guaranteed it would have been the last game of the season. Offense needs to get cleaned up. Defense needs to stay where it's at. I mean, you got to score more points offensively. Joe Lombardi needs to figure something out. And it's just, now that you've done this, it's about managing players, preventing injuries, going out of your box a little bit, but still staying smart. Take some risks, learn some things, run some plays that maybe you're a little bit worried about so you can use them in the playoffs if they do work. But, don't go too far to the box that when you return, if things don't work when you return during the playoffs, it feels weird. You got to kind of get this ball rolling. I mean, is this 4 wins in a row or 3 wins in a row? Dolphins, Titans, Colts. I think it's 3 wins in a row because that Raiders game was right before that. Get it rolling. I really enjoy what this Chargers team can do, and I think they could be a dark horse. If this offense figures out and this defense keeps up, this team can be a dark horse. And you got Joey Bosa likely returning to practice this week. You could have Rashawn Slater returning. This team could be a dark horse. But, long video, I know, but Chargers made the playoffs, and I'm very excited about it. What are your guys' thoughts on this game? How excited are you? And what do you think, while I plan for my next video, who would you prefer the Chargers to go against in the playoffs? All those, leave those down below in the comments. And if you enjoy this content, please like and subscribe. And as always, I hope it taught something today. Hope it made you smile. Hope it made you laugh. Something really important to me affects most day in a great way, because every single day can be a great day, and it sure is when the Chargers make the playoffs. And as always, you guys all be safe out there.